Well, we're here at the Academy Sports and Outdoors Rigs and Techniques
Yes, sir.
at the CCA workbench. Dave and Dad Ballyhoo rigging.
Yeah, well, we're talking about sailfish. You know, they're, like you said, they're one of the most popular fish to catch in Florida. And, you know, there's several different ways to do it. You're either live baiting from Key West all the way up to around North Miami, West Palm a little bit. And from West Palm on up on the East Coast, you're usually trolling dead baits. And when you travel around the world to catch sailfish, you're usually trolling dead baits.
Right.
It's hard to keep live baits alive and take care of them and all that stuff. And dead baits are a lot easier. But they've gone through quite a transformation from the very first time when we started using circle hooks to now. And we first started off, we were using a thing called an X on the head, which was a floss rig. This is actually a second version. The first version was made by Ron Hamlin in Guatemala, where they had a big tie up on the top of the head and an actual hook set up on a little knot. It was very complicated. But this one's a lot easier. It's pretty much just a ring of floss that goes around the collar of a bait, and then you put it all together and tie it
Go
up.
through his eyes.
Correct.
And tie it. And blah, blah,
Correct.
blah, blah,
Make
blah.
sure he swims real good. And whenever you're doing any of these baits, there's certain things that no matter what kind of bait we're using, and we got 4 different ones here, they all have to have the same kind of things. You want to make sure that the eyeballs are out to keep the eyeballs from blowing up on you later on and coming out of the side of the head and making the bait swim weird. You want to take the pec fins off. You want to make sure you clean all the poop out of the inside and make sure the belly's nice and flat and empty, so it's not, that one's not been done yet. So, but anyway, you want your bellies clean so the baits last longer, but all those things have to be done. And when you start doing them, you always want to make sure that you start in the center of the head. You can't be off a little bit to one side or the other. If you are, the bait's not going to swim right. You want to make sure that you're right down,
Dead in the middle.
Dead in the middle on the center line. A good way to do that is to use a rigging needle. You can use a rigging needle to help you out. It's a little easier to control than just a little piece of wire or something. And you can make a pilot hole, which is what I always like to do. I always like to get my needle out and poke a nice hole in him before I put the wire through, because it's a good guide. Now, the next iteration of after we did that the floss
X on the
version,
head.
they went to a swivel, and a lot of the guys are still using this today as far for tournaments. This is a great big swivel. I did it so you could see it a lot easier. But they have an actual barrel swivel with one half of the barrel swivel buried in the head of the ballyhoo and the other end sticking out, and that's where your hook will go when it's on a leader.
Right.
And again, that's a big swivel. The swivel that you're going to use is going to be a little smaller, so that when that hook goes through, it just barely goes through, so it doesn't come out easy. So after we finished with that, well, actually, I wanted to explain one thing. When you're using this swivel, the trickiest part of the swivel, after is the very beginning, is right when you put that swivel down through the crease in his mouth there. You have to be really careful when you're popping that first swivel in that you don't break his jaw, because you have to, and the best thing to do is to just get your hand right up here and use your thumb and pull it down. You pull it down and it'll pop that swivel through.
Okay.
But after that swivel deal, we came to start using an O-ring, which is, you're still using the 14-inch piece of copper wire, which again, 14 inches is that's the wrong one. 14 inches are perfect for this kind of rigging. You'll have just enough to go through his eyeballs a couple times and wrap down his bill. But that little O-ring right there is really easy. You don't have to worry about popping that swivel through and crushing your bait. And it still allows you a great room of movement for that circle hook. And now a fella up in Maryland came up with this idea to make these ringer swivels. And what it is, it's that swivel with the O-ring on one end. And now, because it's got that, it's got that little O-ring on the end and the swivel too, you have a huge amount of movement, and you can change the hooks real easy. You can put all your baits in the thing and have all your leaders ready with a circle hook snelled on them.
Yeah.
You have 80-pound leaders, about 5 foot long, that'll go on to the end of your wind-on, and you can have all your baits lined up beautiful in there. And when you need a bait, you just pull it out and stick it through that O-ring, and boom, you're ready to go.
So at Casa Vieja, they use a VMC 7385 in a 7.0. You like a 7.0 here?
Yes, 7.0 is plenty big enough and strong enough to hold any sailfish that you're going to run across.
Dude,
Even blue marlins,
I
actually.
feel like we didn't have enough time.
You could
did
go
a
on
great
and on and
job.
on.
Yeah, great job.
You could go
All
on
right,
and
Bree, speaking of going on and on and on, we got to go.
Gotta go on and on.